Energy saves lives. It's a pleasure having Tom Kirkman. Tom has a vast international experience with engineering projects for offshore oil platforms and oil refineries and petrochemical plants. So good afternoon, Tom. Thank you for coming to our conversation today.
And nice to talk to you again, Armando. It's always a pleasure.
Excellent. In a LinkedIn post today, Stuart Turley said, Nord Stream 1 will not come back online until they approve Nord Stream 2. Do you agree with this prediction?
It would be a logical move by Russia. EU is coming up with a 7th set of sanctions, and Russia provides 40% of EU energy plus wheat, plus palladium, plus, and they're going crazy. It's like it's biting the hand that feeds. So Germany blocked the approvals for Nord Stream 2 at the last minute when Nord Stream 2 was essentially completely finished being built, but it's only the regulations that are blocking it from starting up. So that's got to annoy Russia to no end on top of all the other sanctions. They spent huge amounts of money building this pipeline and they're not allowed to use it. So it's like, okay. So when that Siemens turbine got sent back to Canada for refurbishment for Nord Stream 1, and then sanctions would not allow it to be shipped back. And to my understanding, I haven't seen evidence that it's actually been shipped back yet to Germany. I don't know. I know it's supposed to be, but maybe you know, I haven't been paying attention to that particular story, but it's like sanctions are stopping Nord Stream 1 from operating effectively. I'm sure Russia is exaggerating the impact of it, but you need these turbines to, force this gas through the pipelines. There's just no way around it. So a logical progression of Nord Stream 1 is Nord Stream 2. And I know when Trump was president, I kept saying, I'm in favor of expanding oil and gas pipeline infrastructure anywhere in the world, regardless of the politics. Regardless, I don't care. I don't care if it's Russia or Iran or Korea, or I don't care where. To me, oil and gas powers civilization currently and for the foreseeable future. Nuclear also helps out, but a lot of countries are a little skeptical of building nuclear power plants because of the scares that have happened in way back when in New York and then also in Japan. So right now, since the advent of oil and gas powering industries, oil and gas helped win World War II. Oil and gas has increased massively the life expectancy of populations around the world because it's providing reliable, consistent energy. The price may fluctuate, but it's providing reliable, consistent energy, as opposed to wind and solar, which are basically inconsistent and, I don't want to say irrelevant, but in the overall scheme of things, they are not a reliable energy partner. They can provide intermittently, but when it's really, really needed, they can't come through. Look what just happened in Texas yesterday. Texas was warning that there was going to be rolling power blackouts, which didn't really happen. But the reason was wind was only producing 8% of what was expected to be produced. So you can power nuclear power provides reliable electricity in the long term. And these plants can last for a very, very long time. It is a steady outflow of electricity. Wind and gas are not, wind and solar are not. So oil and gas can be ramped up, not necessarily overnight, but they can be ramped up, except right now we've sort of reached OPEC. If you remember a few years ago, when the last time oil prices were sky high, it was over $100 a barrel and everyone's freaking out. OPEC, didn't really want to implement caps on production. And now what's happened is OPEC is having production targets, which they're still not reaching. OPEC is currently producing about $1 million barrels a day below their targets. They're having trouble keeping up with the world demand for oil and gas. Yeah. And to me, that means we've sort of hit the limit right now of what OPEC can do. And it should be incumbent on other countries around the world to increase their oil and gas production, including the United States, but that's not happening. I mean, look at what happened in the United States. Biden shut down, revoked a permit for expansion of a St. Croix,
Federal
U.S.
lands.
Virgin Islands oil refinery in March. That's a 200,000 barrels per day oil refinery, and they wanted to do a large expansion. I've heard it called massive. First, Biden revoked the permit due to pollution concerns, and then he completely shut down the oil refinery. That's 200,000 barrels a day lost. So when you're talking about doing everything possible to increase, American oil and gas production and, producing gasoline and all this other stuff while you're actively shutting down a functioning oil refinery, that makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
So what's going on in Europe right now is the kindergartners, are the bureaucrats running the show, and it's just it's the amount of stupidity is just laughable. And I shouldn't really say that, but it's like, wow, is Greta Thunberg running the European Union? It's insane. So Germany had a chance of becoming more energy self-sufficient, but decided not to go that route by shutting down nuclear power plants, shutting down coal plants, and expanding its reliance on Russian gas. That was a choice. That was a deliberate choice that they made. And now they're paying a price for basically dumping water all over Russia with the 7th round of sanctions of everything under the sun. So they're biting the hand that feeds them. So don't be surprised if Nord Stream 1 either doesn't come back online after its planned annual shutdown, or if maybe they'll just give 25% or 50% of the capacity, and people can scream all they want about, oh, but you're breaking your contract. Well, the sanctions already broke the contracts for natural gas delivery.
Yeah, and a very important point.
I'll give you a chance to speak up.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No problem.
Sorry.
It's very, very good speech from you. But because Nord Stream 1 is about 120 million barrels a day, cubic meters a day. So if they, let's say, cut to 40% or something like that, it's not enough for Germany.
Yes.
And LNG from the US is not sufficient. It's expensive, and the logistic is fragile. So to replace the Russian natural gas immediately is not possible.
And hurricane season is going to be coming up soon in the United States, and a lot of the offshore oil, it's going to result in a reduction of LNG exports to Europe. And the problem is Europe is buying up all the LNG left, right, and center at very high prices, and not enough is going to Asia. So at some point, Asia is going to want to restore their flows of LNG. It just means the prices of LNG are going to increase even more. Now, with the pipelines in Russia can't just simply, flip a switch and redirect all of its gas flows elsewhere. That's not going to happen. But on the other hand, Russia is making more money this year than it did last year on selling less oil and less gas than it did last year, just because the price of everything has gone up so much. So it's helping China, it's helping India, it's helping countries that are friendly to Russia buying oil and gas and LNG at reduced prices, while it's much higher prices for the European Union, and it's affecting everyone. I think natural gas prices, I believe, are 700% higher than they were a year ago in the EU. Oh my God. 700%. It's crazy, and it's going to go higher if Russia shuts it off. And as I said, they're handing Russia a chess piece. It's like, here, have another queen for the board to play with. It's like, okay, we're doing the annual maintenance of the Nord Stream 1 pipeline, and you can't force Russia to turn it back on.
This pressure of the whole society in terms of natural gas can force the licensing of Nord Stream 2?
Russia will likely try it, and it would probably be in Germany's longer-term interest if they approve it, because currently, I know their target is to, reduce Russian oil and gas, especially within Germany. But in the meantime, they're having huge amounts of economic difficulty replacing this And if LNG prices continue to go higher and oil prices continue to go higher, I mean, even Bloomberg and Reuters, they're saying openly that oil prices could hit, $380 a barrel, which for the first time I'm saying is not scaremongering. If it's so tight and there's no spare capacity, and Biden is actively continuing to fight his war against, domestic U.S. oil and gas, which he's been doing, canceling pipelines. I mean, XL comes to mind, first day in office, but other pipelines as well. EPA being a sick dog, a sick, SIC, attack dog. The EPA is currently trying to target Texas oil and gas for pollution concerns and wants to shut down a huge amount of oil and gas domestic production in the United States and Texas. Clearly, Texas will fight this, and EPA needs to have its teeth yanked out, that they're way overstepping their bounds. But if they are able to restrict Texas oil and gas due to EPA pollution concerns, watch the price of oil and gas skyrocket around the world. So Iran, I don't think, can increase its oil production that much. Venezuela, even though they want to, their infrastructure is, I'm sure you know this, their oil and gas infrastructure is held together with baling twine. And all of the experienced oil and gas engineers were all fired by Maduro because of politics. So yes, so because if they wanted to make it socialist, all the oil and gas revenues go to the country for free everything. Yeah, that didn't work out.
And they have heavy oil. They need some kind of equipment and systems to become the oil productive, because the oil is heavy.
Yes.
Heavy oil.
Very, very heavy. It's like sludge. The thing is that the refineries in the United States, a lot of what's coming out with fracking is basically ultralight, and it needs to be mixed with the really heavy crude, either from Canada or Venezuela. Canada would be a better choice because Canada is a friendly neighbor. Venezuela is not. It makes perfect sense.
But the Keystone, the Keystone from Canada was banned too.
Yes, I know, and there's still a chance to restart it, but I mean that would be a many years process. But that would help alleviate some of the energy concerns in the United States. But that still won't really resolve the oil refinery shortage in the United States and around the world. So Kuwait comes to mind. There's a couple Middle Eastern countries that are planning to build and or expand oil and gas refineries. It doesn't hit the news that much, but I've stumbled across it a couple times. Kuwait comes to mind. I can't off the top of my head give you the numbers, but if the Western countries are not going to build or expand oil refineries to make gasoline and diesel and jet fuel, Middle Eastern countries are going to set up and do that, because it'll be highly profitable down the road if the Western countries are going to shoot themselves in the foot and try and stop using oil and gas and use 100% wind and solar and hydro. That's just not going to work. So anyone who invests in an oil refinery right now, down the road, is going to be making tons of money.
Tom, do you believe that peace in Ukraine and Nord Stream 2, is there a perfect relationship between these two issues?
Ukraine, I don't really want to touch on Ukraine because people get upset when I talk too much about Russia and or Ukraine. My view is there are no white hat actors here. Everybody in this whole game sucks. I'm sorry. There's no good actors. I don't like what Russia is doing. I don't like what Ukraine is doing. I view Ukraine as one of the most corrupt countries in the world, and it's basically money laundering for a lot of countries around the world, and it has been for such a long time. Why do you think so many countries around the world are sending billions, hundreds of billions of dollars to this country that is not part of NATO? It makes no sense. So there's a lot of politics on there that I don't really want to touch when I'm talking about oil and gas. It's kind of inescapable, but it's better I don't touch too much on it.
No, sure. Tell me, the solution for Europeans is to take a flight to Australia for the next winter?
Well, Australia is in winter right now, and they're already, talking about possible oil shortages. One of the problems with Australia is they've contracted huge amounts of LNG overseas and leaving a gas shortage domestically within Australia. because it's more profitable to sell the LNG overseas. So Australia is going to have its own energy shortage, which again is self-inflicted because for business reasons, it's more profitable to sell it overseas than to sell it domestically. That to me is a domestic energy security issue that you would almost think it would be a national security issue, but the government in Australia doesn't view it that way because again, they're all on the green bandwagon of, everyone, let's do all wind and solar and hydro and nothing else. And, oil and gas are evil and we're going to destroy the world and all this other stuff. And it's like, no, oil and gas have brought much of the world out of poverty by giving reliable energy to the world. It's also used in medicines. It's used in all sorts of stuff. It's not just used for, gasoline. So
what are the other source that Europe can bring natural gas? Other sources?
They're kind of tapped out. I mean, they're going to have to restart the nuclear power plants that they shut down. It would be a long process. They need to restart more coal plants that were shut down. I don't know if you're aware, Texas shut down 20 coal power plants since 2010.
Wow.
That's why they're having an energy shortage. 20. So and they replace them with wind and solar. So it's fine to add wind and solar. They can add to hydrocarbons and nuclear, but they can't replace them. If Texas had not shut down these 20 coal power plants, they would not be having these threats of rolling power blackouts. They would have sufficient electricity in the grid with wind and solar, adding additional electricity, but replacing coal power plants, which are basically reliable electricity, with wind and solar, which is very much intermittent and unreliable, that's just a recipe for disaster. So Germany has been the big cheerleader for this green type of transition away from oil and gas. The EU, the whole EU/World Economic Forum type energy transition, and yesterday or the day before, the World Economic Forum came out with a white paper, a supposed white paper, basically tying climate change to a decline in democracy. And it's like, wow, you guys are just really pushing the buttons here. It's like, no, it's not working that way.
The last point, please, Tom. Do you believe that the visit of Mr. Biden to Saudi Arabia can recover the production to a good level of oil production?
No. Absolutely not. I posted a graph today out of Statistica, and basically Saudi Arabia has essentially reached pretty much its limit. It doesn't really have any more spare capacity, regardless of what it says. It's been a hunch of a long time that Saudi Arabia has been exaggerating what its spare capacity is, and it might be able to expand its spare capacity on a very short-term basis for like maybe a month, but anything over, it's currently at about 10.5 million barrels, and it looks like around the uppermost limit that it can currently do is 11 million. It's not a whole lot more, and I don't think it'll ever reach the peak that it had before, because I hear rumors that when it did that 1 month spike a while ago, it hurt long-term oil production. This is what happens when you force oil out of a well faster than it is supposed to be coming out. It seriously damages things for the long term. So no, Biden is wasting his time there. He's going to go there cap in hand and basically begging, and it's not going to accomplish anything. First of all, he's massively insulted the whole Saudi Arabia state. Not that I'm a big fan of Saudi Arabia. It's a horrible dictatorship. But it's biting the hand that feeds you. Biden going and begging to Saudi Arabia for more oil. It's about as stupid as the EU piling all these sanctions on Russia when the EU is dependent on Russia for so many natural resources, not just oil and gas. Mm-hmm. It makes no sense. So it's like it's kindergartners running the show here. It's like they're running around having temper tantrums and not looking at the bigger picture and trying to figure out a rational, reasonable way of doing things. So right now, what's happening is these sanctions are helping Russia. I've brought this up before. It is not hurting Russia at all. Their revenues are going up. They're selling less oil and gas at much, much higher prices, and they're rewarding their allies by selling discounted oil and gas, and they're still making money. So this is not really hurting Russia at all. It's expanding the BRICS, Russia, Brazil, Russia,
India, South Africa.
India, Saudi Arabia. Yes, and South Africa, yes. And there's more and more talk of BRICS using a basket of currencies and roping other countries in to use currencies other than the US dollar or the euro for many transactions, not just oil and gas. And what will happen is this is the transition away from the petrodollar. And as more and more countries move away from using the US dollar to purchase oil and gas, it will have a long-term negative effect on the US dollar.
Yeah, sure.
It might have a short term, like right now, even if the dollar firms up briefly, the long-term effect is going to hurt. So currently 80% of oil around the world is sold in US dollars, but that and 20% in currencies other than US dollars. But as that ratio expands, as BRICS expands their power, being due to the self-inflicted wounds from imposing sanctions against Russian oil and gas, it's just going to hurt the US dollar, and it's going to hurt Western economies. And what you're going to see is the rise of Chinese currency, the rise of Indian currency, primarily. If Iran comes in, if a few other countries in the Middle East and Saudi Arabia if Saudi Arabia decides to join BRICS, then that it's pretty much game over for the petrodollar. It's just a matter of time.
The strategy is totally wrong. It's not a good strategy.
Yes.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you today, Tom Kirkman.
Fun talking with you again. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, sure. Have a good day.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.